Is it possible to solve the language barrier issue in the food service industry? That's a question that a leader that I know of asked me recently. And here's kind of what I was able to answer in a short form. We spent several minutes talking about. So let's break down the question first. The question is, you want to solve the language barrier issue in the entire food service industry. So let's look at the word solve. The word solve simply, it actually has three different parts to it. It means to give an answer for. It also means to provide an explanation for, but it also has this idea of having a means to effectively deal with the problem. So basically, what's the answer? There may not be an answer exclusively for the entire food service industry. Well, what's the explanation? Well, obviously, we got a language barrier because we hired people in that don't have, maybe if it's English, they don't have English as their primary language. Okay. But see, there's different ways of looking at solve. So what is it that you want to do? I want the problem to go away. Okay. But I want to keep the talent of the people that don't speak the right language. Okay. Now we understand. Now we're getting somewhere. So we got to identify what does solve mean to us. And then what about this issue? What is an issue? Well, an issue is just an important topic, but it also could be an important problem. It could be an important debate. It can be an important discussion. So what this language barrier issue, is it just a topic that you want to discuss? Is it a debate that you want to have? Is it, like, well, it's not really an issue. Well, I think it's an issue. Is that what or is it a problem? So it comes a problem. Here's the thing. Those on your team, if they're not communicating correctly, there's an impediment. And that's what language barrier is all about. A language barrier is something getting in the way for communication. Usually it's between parties that do not speak the same language. They don't come from the same country, or they're from a different part of the world and so forth. I believe that with effort and a lot of creativity, that you can find a solution to the language barrier in your own restaurant. But remember, the question was, I want to solve the question, or the problem. I want to solve the problem for the entire, for everything. For the entire food service. And I'm not sure that you could do that, because it's going to be exclusive solution per restaurant, by the way, not in just every chain. Every chain is going to be different in the same franchise, right? So I think primarily this is true because I know a lot of people that speak my language that I can't understand a word they're talking about. I guess I'm not hip. I don't know what slap and Riz and sus and all these other things mean. I hear them talking that language. I don't know what it means, right? So you're speaking the English language, but it's been dumbed down so much that maybe we don't understand what they're talking about. Also, I think probably Spanish. In the Spanish culture, there's a lot of English words that have kind of blended in with Spanish, and where it's dumbed down the language a little bit. And so because the issue is just real, it's a real issue in food service, I want to address it and give you at least 5 creative solutions. And that's what you have to be. You just have to be creative on this. Now, the first thing you could do, and all these are just, you could. You don't have to, but you got to address it some way. And maybe 1 or 2 of these you're already doing, but maybe try the other one, right? So first of all, you could only hire those that speak a different language if you have an interpreter. If you have at least 1 or 2 people on the team, if it's day shift, night shift, so forth, if you have 1 or 2 people on the team that actually can speak the language, that can translate, they're bilingual, they can speak that language and translate, then you just say, okay, we have a policy that anybody that has that doesn't speak a language and we can't provide an interpreter, how could we lead you if we can't talk with you? If I can't communicate with you, and it's a disaster, it's a fire, something like that, I can scream at you my language, but if you're not understanding, then that can get in the way of safety, right? Okay, so the first thing is you could choose to only hire those that speak a different language if you have an interpreter, someone to translate for you. The second possible solution is this. You could use visual aids, videos, and pictures that help them to understand what the station is required and how do you operate in this station, and whether it's beverages or it's the griddle or it's the fryer or whatever. You can have pictures around that. You can give them videos that have a translator in their language giving the instructions. I know of a company right now. I was asking around. This company is really, really. If I give you the name, you would you've probably been there. You've probably been there twice this week. But asking one of the kitchen directors there about how they are navigating through this issue, he said that he's taken a picture of all the menu items. He's taken a picture of all of the machinery and the equipment in the kitchen. And what he's done is he's putting that into a binder with the picture. He'll put a description. He'll put how it's actually done in their language to where they can recognize this is what the finished product looks like. And he puts it into their language. So he's got a picture and he's got it translated, which brings me to the third thing. You got to translate everything. So translate everything that you have that you need them to know into their language. That means orientation needs to be translated. If you have an orientation packet, it means that all your training program would need to be translated into their language. It means the menu board, the menu items needs to be translated in their language. It could be the policy book. If you have a policy manual, that needs to be translated in their language. And you just do that to the language as needed. So you don't have to do 17 languages, but if it's just, Spanish that you're working with right now, then only translate it into Spanish, right? Then the fourth thing is this: you got to ensure that your leaders are both patient and clarifying. Make sure that the leader is patient. Understand this, that if you were to work in any other country, that somebody would have to be patient with you, knowing that there was a language barrier. They may see you're really good at what you do. You're a hard worker. You got good work ethic and good etiquette, but and mad skills. But if I can't speak to you, I can't lead you. And if you were in another organization and that organization was in another country, you'd be thankful that somebody was clarifying the expectations. They were clarifying to you any needful communication to everybody on the team and not just those that speak their language. And the last thing I would say is this: you could just be willing to adapt. Be willing to adapt. Be willing to learn a new language. But I will say that this is a double-edged sword, right? It's a two-edged sword. In other words, that it cuts one way, but it cuts the other way. It's a two-sided point, right? So you want to make sure that as you are willing to adapt to them and helping them and understanding their language and knowing some of the words that you can kind of make out, they need to be moving the same direction, right? So it should be both. In other words, one just not learning the language and another one trying to make strides to learn the language. It needs to be both parties coming together to learn the language. If I were to move to France, if I was to move to Germany, if I was to move to Russia or something like that, if I was to move to anywhere, Mexico, I would not expect them to cater to my language. I would know I need to learn the dialect. I need to learn the language and I need to make strides to do that and show that that I want this job. I want to stay here because I recognize if you can't speak to me, then you can't lead me, right? So communication is such a big deal. And that's why the language barrier issue is just so big. So of course, language training, that's probably going to be the only real long-term solution that companies can use. But until that's met, then to grapple with the language barrier, or by the way, cultural differences or generational differences, you got to overcome them. You got to overcome them on a day-to-day basis in order to promote a winning, a friendly, maybe a productive work environment. You've got to do the best that you can to overcome this, and even if it is involved with different languages.